Welcome, everybody, to the Havens Community Conversations podcast, where we have honest conversations about faith, life, and everything in between. I'm your host again tonight. My name is Courtney, and I'm interviewing my youngest son, Daxton.
Hello.
Welcome. Glad to have you.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, let's see. First question. You're a funny and witty guy. You always have been. Do you remember
How about that?
Do you remember the first time that you really made somebody belly laugh?
First time, I don't know. But probably the earliest heavy memory was, I think it was second grade. Probably in second grade lunches, because I don't know, I was just saying the first thing that came to mind and telling stories in just an overly dramatic way. And
Was it the chicken stories?
Yeah, it was. It was.
So for those of you who don't know, I actually had, at the end of the school year when he brought home some of his material, I was cleaning out his backpack, and some little girl had wrote on his folder, "I can't wait to hear more chicken stories." I was like, chicken stories? And I went back to Dax and I was like, tell me more about these chicken stories. He was like, nothing. It was just something I made up on the fly. So that used to
Had
make
them cackling, yeah.
I'm
for
cracking
sure.
up. Chicken stories.
For sure.
I'm going to have to get you to reenact some of those
I
someday.
couldn't tell you.
Okay. So you're really into photography.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're looking through the camera lens, what are you hoping to capture in people?
Authenticity. And yeah, authenticity. I mean, I was going to add on to that, but I guess everything else would fall into that category. But for those who don't know, I do a lot of street photography. And I think the best moments are when you're capturing somebody who is just going about their daily life. Because when you're expecting to be captured or expecting something of you, you start preparing yourself and hyperfixate. But yeah, I'm hoping to capture the really candid moments. Yeah, authentic. Like, I like to go for a more cinematic look on mine. So
That's good.
yeah.
Do you remember the first thing that actually got you into photography? What was it that you were like, you know what, I can kind of see myself doing this long term?
Other people's work, and then also the cinema industry,
Cool.
film industry.
Did you remember the first picture that you took where you were like, man, I did it. I created somebody's authenticity.
Oh, wow. I was proud of a lot of my early photos that I've posted that are now gone.
Oh, you took them down?
I took down some of the very early on. I archived them, so they're still there.
Okay.
But
You have to be able to look back at them.
not for public view, but I might put them back.
Oh.
Because I wanted to go more for what I took on my camera, and a lot of my stuff that I posted before my camera was shot on my phone. So I think my first ever experience with like a professional camera and knowing at least how to use it enough to be able to frame the shot I wanted was when I was given the camera to borrow to just
Oh, yeah.
my camera I have now. I was borrowing it, and I was just taking pictures of the worship team here
cool.
on Sunday. That really inspired me.
That's cool.
And then I immediately got really hyperfixated on how I shot on my phone. That's why they're all gone now. But
Hyperfixated. You've had a couple of those instances in your life where you've hyperfixated on something and been real into it
yeah.
until you feel like you
Oh.
expire all options.
I go into phases all the time with everything. I'll get fascinated with it for a period of time and then move on to something else.
The 24-hour drawing challenge. That was a fixation for
That
a
was a
while.
hard hyperfixation.
Yep.
Art was a long time.
Yes, that was a good one. One of your other times of enjoyment is rock climbing. What do you like about rock climbing?
I like seeing my progress. I like being able to interact with other people. That's why I don't think I'd really enjoy it as much if I was alone. I think that's why, I'd still do it. And I think I'd still, to some degree, if everything was prepared right, I think I'd enjoy, working out and weightlifting. But I think it's something about, putting yourself into an activity and then, alongside other people. It's weird. I've always liked the gym mindset.
Yeah.
And the gym kind of community that you see around that.
It's
at least
an
the people,
encouraging bunch.
Yeah, the people that are really supportive, really happy to have you there. And I get that almost every...
And they want to motivate you.
Yes, and I get that almost every time I go into the place where I rock climb.
I remember when you were really, really little, I want to say you were like 3 or 4, and there was a fall festival that used to happen in the neighborhood around the pool every year, and they always had a rock climbing wall. And I remember you were like 3 or 4, and you were wanting to climb that so bad, but you were so little at the time. I was like, I don't want him going up too high, and then, something happens, even though you were in a harness. But you finally did it like the next year, and you went all the way to the top, and you had like no fear at all. Yeah. And from that point on, it's kind of been like you always wanted to master a new wall, master a new difficulty course, and it's just interesting to watch that.
That's the reason I got
that
back
when you were
into
little.
it. Yeah. That's the reason I got back into it is because, I knew I liked doing it when I was younger. I was pretty good at it for, my age, I guess. So I went back.
You never had any fear of heights, ever.
And I just, just doing that on a weekly basis really appealed to me. That's why I went back.
That's good. I'm glad you still enjoy it.
I do.
Okay. What is something that most people your age are into that you're not impressed with? I know it's kind of a big question. There's probably a couple, but...
It's probably a lot I'm not thinking of right now. That'll pop back into my head sometime tonight.
After this interview is over, and you'll be like, I could think of A, B, C, D, E, F.
Yes. Probably social status. And, I don't get me wrong, I'm, pro making a good impression,
Sure.
I don't think that means just forget about, and act the way you want. But I think people, especially teens, you're in that point in your life where situations you're in and emotions you're experiencing are literally the world to you. And that's, that's why if you're in a really bad situation, people tend to think it's the end of the world.
Right.
I'm like, there's so much more after that. But so social status, but I also think a question to clip onto that I think is even more valuable is what are people not interested in that disappoints me?
Ah, that's a good way to swing that question.
Yeah.
Okay, elaborate on that a little bit more.
So, there's a few things. So, there are plenty of kids that are fascinated with these things, but I have seen maybe it's not even on religion or philosophy, but even in those categories, people who are so hyperfixated on the moment or very shallow things. I'm not really too impressed with that. I
So you
think
feel like your generation should be thinking about deeper things, or are you more unimpressed
some
when?
people.
Yeah,
There are plenty of people that are actually,
yeah,
really care, and you see it on them, even if you don't even agree with them. They really care about what they believe in, and they care because they view it as a big problem to the world.
yeah,
But I think like things like religion or something to make you question what's greater out there, what gives my life purpose. That's something is I'm pretty content with leaving certain things as a mystery, but when it's something that applies heavily to my life or other people's lives, that's like without it you're missing out on something, or I don't know, it's just directly affects the path you take in your life. That's when it really I hyperfixate on it.
yeah.
That's something that guided me in my faith. Yeah.
So back when your dad and I were teenagers, it was a lot of the grunge era, which I know you appreciate the music, but by and large, people did have a strong message, but they had to have certain things like campaigns called Rock the Vote, where you had to inspire that generation to vote because they weren't really voting.
Yeah.
It's not that they didn't have opinions, but they felt grossly underserved. That they felt like, we all kind of felt like, why vote? Our voices aren't being heard. And so Rock the Vote was kind of one of the first things that helped inspire my generation to vote for the change that you want.
Yes.
Yeah, but it was really cool. But now you guys, I think with the internet so widespread, that you guys are so much more educated on that, and the world has become a smaller place
Yes.
because all that information is at your
You
fingertips.
know more about what's going on around the world. That's really interesting. About what you said, that people weren't heavily interested in politics or voting was because
I
they
don't
felt
think it was. I don't think that it was necessarily that they weren't interested in the topics. I think they just felt like, we're not going to be heard anyway,
sure.
so why even try? We won't be taken seriously. Nobody's speaking for us. And so a lot of us didn't vote. It wasn't until we were older, the internet, and having a lot more information at our fingertips and feeling like we had things to say and things to vote for.
Yeah.
But you guys are voting much earlier than my generation was voting, which is good.
So would you say that that it can also be a respect issue? Like if you
Sure.
I can even apply that to things like teachers or coworkers and managers. I think that there are kids that won't pay attention wherever they're in, good or bad teacher, but there are plenty of even students that I think would have a lot of potential if they were shown respect.
They were invested in.
Yeah.
You always manage to tell me about those teachers who are cute into the kids and the ones who show up at sporting events because their students are playing.
Yeah.
That stuff means a ton
Yeah.
to students, and it goes far with them because it's not like you're just teaching them in front of a classroom. You're invested in their lives and you care about the people that they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
and I
even
could tell
just-
you understand
yeah.
and see that.
Even just like even just basic manners, and I mean from adults too. I think especially it's really healthy for especially kids in high school is because they're they're in that final part of their life till they're in the real world, and they're in adulthood, and they're something I've appreciated is when teachers obviously they're still students, so I don't expect complete 100%, but treat them in a more leveled way.
Treat them more mature,
Yeah.
than their age
don't
group.
think, yeah,
I think you can get people to rise to the occasion.
yeah,
If you believe in their potential, you can watch them rise to that potential.
yeah,
If you treat them as if they're ignorant and small, what need do they have to exceed your expectations?
yeah,
You know, I think people can rise to the occasion if given the opportunity.
sure.
I see that a lot from your generation. It's good. Well, before we go any further, let's go ahead and pray, and we'll continue on our conversation.
Sounds great.
Lord, we thank you so much for meeting with us tonight. We thank you for these conversations, for these times where we get to just chisel out a little bit of time in our daily life to connect with one another, Lord, to share our stories and realize that there are people out there who need to be encouraged to share theirs as well. And I think that's the reason why you give us our stories, is because we can connect with other humans. We were not built for a vacuum kind of existence. We were built to connect and to engage in one another and teach and learn from one another, Lord. So I just thank you for these opportunities to be honest and to be real, and to just show your glory and what you've done in our lives. And we thank you. We ask that you bless tonight and bless this conversation, Lord, and that you would use it for your good. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Real question, number one. Those were just fun and fluff. The first one is, you're really into talking politics and theology, not just talking, but you really ponder these subjects, and you have for a long time now. I've kind of watched this develop, and even when you were much, much younger and you were asking me questions about things that you saw on TV or saw on the news or saw on the internet, and it sparked your interest. How in the world did you come about that? What made you interested in it in the first place?
Think kind of like what I was talking about a minute ago. It's when something, I tend to focus and hyperfixate on things that directly, have a huge impact on my life and other people's. So, and then also just, things that are along that line that I don't understand. I think I'm a naturally curious person, so I think I take a lot of interest in that. And then with history, I've been really big into history. I like, learning about what things were like before I was there.
Yeah.
And why, what motivated people to do what they did, or good or bad. With these either huge conflicts or, beginning of civilizations, it's something motivated them to do that. There is something that motivated that amount of people. Sometimes it's a nation, sometimes it's on a global level, but there is motivation behind that. And where did that come from? What was going on in their head? So with theology and politics, as well as philosophy, that took me down a whole rabbit hole. And whenever the more I started to learn, the only more that grew my motivation to learn more.
I think I first noticed it in, the questions that you would ask theologically, and then getting into history, and you cared about like all of these stories. Some of them are big things that we know of, the Holocaust and World War I and World War II, but even like, who was it, Baldwin, that you were really interested in, and just learning about all these smaller events and how they started with one like pinprick event that was the catalyst for all this major historical change. So you've always been really interested in that, and you knew a lot more about geography than I ever knew at your age. And I can just imagine you being in those classes and they're not expecting you to know what you know, and you like chime in and be like, oh yeah, that was the third emperor of China or something, where you just spout that off, and I'm sure that you've shocked more than one teacher with your love of
Sometimes.
history.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Okay. Do you feel like those conversations that you have with other people regarding theology and politics, do you think that they've made your faith stronger, or have they broadened your faith? How would you say
Challenged it.
yeah,
Um,
that's the word.
yeah, I think all of that. I think it's thrown me through loops and challenged it. You said politics,
In theology,
theology, have they made it stronger?
have they made your faith stronger?
Yeah, all three of those. It's strong. It's took me through like a roller coaster of different headspaces. You know, you think, especially with something, religion tends to be more of a objective worldview. So if you have your theology or your idea of your number one objective value, then and that doesn't align with something down the line, it just throws you through a loop. So, and that's the same thing on lower levels too. If your politics don't align with your
Worldview.
values or your I guess religious values. I wish there was another word, but yeah,
Your
that can,
ideology,
yeah.
I guess.
So it's really challenged me, especially when something sounds very clear and reasonable, and something like politics or a worldly conversation, but doesn't align with Scripture or a greater value like that, then you have to like just deconstruct everything and lay it out in front of you and have to reorganize. So
Have you had anything that you can say wrecked you and rebuilt you? Something that you learned that you had to deconstruct, and it might have wrecked you in the moment and then rebuilt you stronger?
yeah, I use this is actually, I think the biggest impact on that was debating with Zane.
Regarding politics and theology?
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Because during the time when we started heavy debating, I was coming in a mindset where it was very strictly logical. And I was empathetic. I wasn't like, I didn't have to learn everything about empathy down the line, but I do think empathy is part of maturity. So I think that as I'm growing up, I think that empathy is becoming more of a priority, and that I always say that if your logic isn't backed in empathy, then it's empty or it has no base.
That's good.
So with Zane, we got into a very, we've come to a, somewhat of a, middle ground. I line, kind of with him. So, the debates have kind of eased down, but they've always been healthy.
Yeah.
Always.
I was just telling him in his, when I had this interview with him, is y'all have had so many admirable discussions, and the art of discord and debate. I've seen that so much in you guys, being able to listen to one another. I think we tried to raise you guys so that you would stay engaged with people who thought like you and people who didn't think like you. Yes. Because if you stop listening, if you put yourself in an echo chamber, that's all you're ever going to hear. And how will you ever learn how anybody else came to other opinions and other values, because they have their own lives and they've had their own experiences. So that has formed their opinion and their moral ground. So if you shut off those conversations, you'll never know, and you will only hear your own ideas bounced back at you,
Yep.
right? So I love the fact that you guys have had those healthy debates and remained respectful to one another and hearing one another. And I've even heard you guys say, that's a fair point,
Yeah.
and acquiesced, you
Yeah.
know? So I've heard you guys you act with decorum and
Yeah.
diplomacy, and that means a lot when you're actually having those discussions.
That's, yeah. Zane is weird. Zane, on some topics, he tended to be the empathetic,
Yeah.
half the strong empathetic half. So, my challenge to him would be logic, and then, and he was always very logical too. So it was never one or the other. Like, it's not a black and white situation.
Sure.
He was definitely backed with logic. That's why we debated.
Yeah.
But so with me, it was like on certain topics, whether it's worldview or theology or political, some topics, it was like I'd have to push aside my empathy or push aside my, my religious values. So, and I think he kind of pointed out, drawed it back from the back of my head, you can't put down your cross for your convenience or for, you have to consistently carry that. So, yeah, empathy was the biggest. Back to your original question, it's just learning empathy.
It's good.
That wrecked. It's because you tend to want to just make the hard logical decision for a solution, and understanding Christ and wanting to follow him, following his character and his nature, and making that as your, because the Bible doesn't tell you everything to do.
Sure.
It's not a instruction
manual.
but it's it gives you the character of Christ, and it gives you a plethora of the decisions he made and the way he behaved, so you can mimic that in your life,
Right.
and
And
have an
apply
idea.
those to situations and realize that behind those issues and behind those problems are real humans and people.
Yes.
And ones that he loves too.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good.
So
Okay.
that, yeah.
What helps you keep your faith real instead of just something you hear about at church? At some point, your faith had to stop being mine and your dad's and become your own.
So you want me to dive into that?
Yep.
On how it became my own?
Yep.
So, in my early teen years, and then, probably, as you go into middle school and everything, where people just tend to start focusing on stuff like that, or even if it's, immature, it's just, their priorities shift. And I saw, and then as, I'm getting on the internet more and seeing more of the world, and, kind of
Your world's getting
exposing
bigger.
yourself to
Sure.
new information is, I saw, and from a lot of, close people to me, friends, I saw a lot of a cynical attitude towards Christ, and some good arguments, that kind of have to sit back that I couldn't answer at that moment.
Yeah. Did it bother you that
It
you
bothered
couldn't
me like
answer?
crazy. So
Same.
yeah, and I knew how badly, I've always tried to take an empathetic approach on these people because I know how badly it hurts them, and I know why. Because if I had the same view, and I didn't know I didn't understand, if I had the same view and the same experience, I'd probably be in the same situation. So yes, that forced me to like, okay, I have to back my faith now, and it can't just be like, and I taking a look around the world. I mean, everybody's born into a family with different, beliefs. Whether that's, free agnosticism, atheism, or maybe you're born in a different part of the world where you're, likely to be in Islam or something like that. Everybody's born into a different idea.
Yeah.
So, I can't just act based on, what I just was born into
Sure.
and just say that was luck.
Right.
So, yeah, it forced me to have to dive into it to myself. And I remember in the 8th grade, that's when I really that's when I read the Gospels for myself.
And not just
Yeah,
something
it
that
was
taught
really,
you.
yeah, I never put the label on myself that, I deconstructed or something
Yeah. You're kind of constructing for the first
yeah, it
time.
was like, yeah, it was maturing my faith, and then it was like realizing how little I had and how much more I need to build up. And that did throw me through questions I couldn't answer just going on that, because I mean, I've always loved watching debates.
Yeah.
And I've always loved, reading about different opinions, or even just hearing people speak, even if it's something I completely disagree with.
Yeah.
But what really bothered me, and it's not, is when they heavy challenged what I believed, that really just made me want to seek
Learn more.
and learn more and be able to, defend myself logically.
Yes, you did a crash course in apologetics, didn't
Yes.
you? Yeah. Know what you know and why you know what you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Do you remember a time or topic, not a time, but maybe a topic that you wrestled with and wrestled with and maybe even are still wrestling with? Something that you haven't come to the other side of, but you're trying to hold it with an open hand and analyze it from all angles. And
well, I've made it past that. I'm pretty firm in my belief in Christ, but that was, I mean, just even the base idea of, submitting your life and, everything you have to, faith was the biggest thing. So it was that, and then even, that just opens a can of worms when it comes to theology, and, because then we're talking about, who, like, you already figured out you're in the Bible now, and now you're figuring out, okay, based on this, what is the nature of God? And then you have 100 different people telling you contradictory things, and so now you're just,
having to vet them out.
Yep, putting on your serious face and learning more for yourself. So, I mean, we can talk about all the theological things I've, gone through and struggled with, and different sectors of Christianity, or, different religions I've studied. I mean, not a scholar, but I've definitely put time and effort into learning information about plenty of other religions, Islam, Hinduism, and
Just various other world religions
various.
and knowing what they know. And
Yes.
I think the interesting part is you can look at those different religions from the standpoint of, well, I see it done one of two ways. You either look at it trying to find a way to refute it, or looking at it in an honest way and watching your analysis of those religions, pulling apart what you believe instead of, I see people who learn a lot about Christianity from the standpoint of, I don't like your Christ, I don't like your God, so I'm going to learn all that I can about Christianity so that I can refute it.
Yes.
But being able to look at the other religions of the world and really honestly studying them to know why you believe what you believe. And not be scared of that, because God's a big God, and he can take your questions, and he can take whatever you have. And you don't have to be afraid of that, but you, instead of looking at it from a defensive standpoint. You can look at the world religions and study them honestly and know why you believe what you believe.
100%.
Yeah. Let it deconstruct you and reconstruct you.
Various
in a way.
times, over and over again. Yeah.
Is there, what would you say you have struggled with the most? It can be controversial. It can be something that you're like,
Oh, on the
I
topic
really,
of
yes,
yeah.
on the topic of this with religion, I've struggle bus on this topic.
So many. Even things that some of them I'm struggling with, some of them I'm pretty firm, but I'm always keeping an open mind. But can talk Calvinism, annihilationism,
All hot topics.
very, very hot topics and very divisive topics.
Yeah.
And then even with other, like I said, other sections of Christianity, Catholicism, and various different denominations. It's just
There's enough to study just within that.
yeah, because if you're the thing that bothers me the most is that if you're wrong about something, you're missing out on a lot. Like if this is just my head and something that went by my head. If I was wrong about the Eucharist or with the presence of Christ and communion, then what would I be? And the way Catholics view it, it's very it's very essential to salvation, even, and where your soul lies. So if I was missing out on something like that and taking it with grape juice or something like that, what then? Or if with with the saints or with Mary, it's very you could it's very big part, even if it's not essentials, it's a very big part to what I live by.
Sure. I think one of those things to hold with an open hand is to know that you have the essentials in line, and God allows you to wonder,
Sure. Yeah.
Know why you believe what you believe.
Yeah.
The wandering's the best part. He doesn't want blind faith.
Yeah.
He never called for that.
Yeah.
He never called for you to be a stupid Christian. He called for you to be an educated one, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good starting ground, is to start with the essentials, deconstruct that, form that, and then let your opinions about the other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let you
Something
wonder.
I've learned is to taking that you have the essentials and just accept that there are priorities, and it's fine not to have obviously make sure you're firm in your faith and you can defend it, but it's fine not to have all the answers. I think
That's good. It's probably a more honest and
it's honest,
humble
yes,
approach to religion, is like,
yes.
I serve a really big God, and I don't think that I'm going to always have the answers.
If I wouldn't want to worship a God I knew 100% about.
Okay. So we've talked in previous conversations, mainly, your brother's and his struggle with OCD. But, one of the topics of conversation that we don't have enough in the church, and I think in some situations it's been kind of damning, is talking about mental health and talking about people struggling with mental health and how that still happens in the church, and it still happens when you're a Christian. And I know that at various times all of us have struggled with mental health. Have you struggled with mental health, and what has been your journey through that?
Yes. So
yes and yes.
Yes. Yeah. So it's weird because I think you and me are very similar in the way we think. We process internally, and whether you're an external or internal processor, both of them have their benefits.
Sure.
And with internal processing, you can learn to, process, just common anxiety or common thoughts.
Sure.
And you can learn to process them without just like losing control and learning how to control your emotions, I think, is a very, vital thing. But, then you don't know how to differentiate on what you can handle and what you can't.
Sure.
And that, for me, a lot of that has been with other people too. So that's just take me down with walking with God is with other people's struggles. I just tend to have the attitude to not just help them carry their burden, but tend to take the most part of it or all of it. And even if I know that you're not supposed to do that or know not to do that, there's a difference between knowing it and understanding it.
Sure.
And when it's when it's something you naturally want to do and you naturally want to bring people peace, and when God has to set you aside and tell you you can't do
can't
that
be
for
their
people,
peace.
and you can't you can you can do what you can, but the most of that is between God and the person or people. So
That's
yeah,
been a hard transition piece.
it's been a hard transition. And then also with internal processing is there's also, it's speaking to yourself a lot. So, I've been blessed, and I will never try to derail this or, take away its value, because it's incredibly valuable, and it's something God has blessed me with, a family and who, will give me that safe place to speak, and will provide me, information to help me
Sure.
deal with that. But that's something I've had to learn later and after the fact of depressive spouts, because I tend to put myself into a lot of loneliness by creating a box around myself, and that you have to deal with this. And then before even like earlier on, it was like now I know more, but but early on what I struggled with is it was that or you're weak. So it was, if you can't deal with this yourself, then there's a problem with you, and you need to strengthen up.
You need to
And
man up, change.
yeah,
You need to do something.
and you can't, like, what I kept telling myself was you can't rely on other people to do that, even though I couldn't differentiate what relying on somebody is and just giving it all to them, or just asking for help. So
Yep, I think that's the crux of being an internal processor, is that you only have your own thoughts rolling
Yes.
around in your head, and it's like you're trying to, verbal processors are kind of processing as they're talking,
yeah,
but and they're bouncing those thoughts off of other people. But
Yep.
when you're an internal processor, it is your own thoughts just playing like a broken record in your
Yes.
head, and you're trying to make
sense of it.
sense of it and bat it back and forth, but really it's just you and your own self
Yes.
that's batting those back and forth. So it feels like you deal with that much longer than somebody who's a
Yes.
verbal processor.
I would say so.
And so sometimes you can get stuck, and then if you're, I don't know if you've ever had these same thoughts, but it's just like, I don't know that I could explain that to another person.
Yeah.
And that thought of trying to get the thoughts that are in my head out to somebody else is exhausting, because I don't know that I could explain that in words and put it in a way that would even be understandable
Yeah.
for them. And then I just end up keeping it to myself.
It's
right?
because it's gone so much in my mind. Like, you'd have to give me like preparation time and then hours of time just for me to
Yes.
speak, and even then I'd probably forget things. But
Or be too tired by the time you're
yes,
done with it.
that's another thing, and what it's brought me into is mental exhaustion. Is
Word.
I can get a lot of burnout really easily, even from where basic activities or things essential to moving on with things, maybe at school or anything, I know for some people it's fitness.
Sure.
Is like, it's almost like it's like when you wake up after a nap and you're still exhausted.
Yes.
It's
Fatigue.
Yeah,
It's
and
a fatigue in a different way.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the mental fatigue is what I've really struggled with. Is I've spent so much time thinking and contemplating and overthinking because I'm a huge overthinker, and
Wonder where he gets that.
and running things through my head so much, and then it makes me exhausted, where basic activities become heavier.
Yes.
And
Less motivating.
yes, less motivation. And then, but because I'm not, speaking
Sure.
to people, is it makes me depressed.
Yes.
And
It also is compounding.
yeah.
Right?
And because I'm creating new thoughts in my head and more
Yes.
negative thoughts,
Sure.
is I'm creating the thought that that's laziness. And, you know,
Oh, yes.
and what does that, how does that affect your self-esteem or how you, view yourself?
Yeah. Yep. Because you're your own worst critic, and that's whose head you're stuck in.
Yes.
Yeah. It's super fun. Love
And it's
it.
even hard for me, even now, like, I'm growing and I'm getting, better at understanding that. But even speaking about that now, even then, not cringes me out, but it kind of brings me to a place where I'm like,
Are you
kind of at a
sharing too much?
place because there is still that critic who's, judging everything I say, and I'm not saying that to bring, sympathy to myself or, to try to, I don't know. But yeah, it's just and loneliness makes that so much worse when you put yourself like there's a difference between actually being alone because with introverts you can be alone all day and all night and
it feeds your soul.
yeah, and you can be fine and
Yeah.
I've been times when I've been alone for weeks and I haven't felt
Depleted
bad or
sad
depleted,
Yeah.
I've just been chilling. But and then there have been times when I've been surrounded by people who love me and surrounded by friends, even if I'm doing something fun, and I could not feel more out of place. And I feel like I am
Lonely.
yes, and it feels, this is the best way I can describe it, is it's like watching your life through a window
Yeah.
and just watching things go by, but you can't live in the moment, and that makes you really depressed.
Sure.
And it's hard to, when you're in that negative headspace. Analogy is it's hard to look up. It's hard to see where you could be because you're in this spiral. And when you're not getting things done, especially when you see it start to impact your life, when you're not getting things done, and you get more stressed out, which makes you more burnt out and you're already mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
And then because you're not doing something and then that critic comes back and then you're just back into the, depressive headspace, and that can go on till,
Cycle.
yeah. So it's very important to talk to people.
The other day I was reading something and there was a little clip. I wish I even had the reference to the guy, but he said, you can never appreciate the level ground that you stand on until you know the deepness of the ditch you were in. And that's absolutely 100% true. Is like appreciating level ground when you know the deepness of the ditch, like that you've been in before. It's a good perspective. And if you've ever been stuck in your own head, if you are an internal processor, we get you.
Yeah.
Like being stuck in your own head is the worst. You only have your own critical thoughts going back and forth.
Yeah.
So being able to understand yourself and give yourself grace
Yes.
is not something that's readily available when you're in your own head. It's very hard to learn how to do that.
And the most common verse that still resonates with me, that I'm still trying to, to use and apply to myself, is, a lot of people confuse it. When the Bible says love your neighbor as yourself, they think it's, love them more than yourself, or, create this selfless thing, but it's as yourself. It's not more than yourself.
Sure.
I don't, I'm sure parents love their kids most of the time more than themselves.
We do.
But I think that even just, taking that to the base is you need to give yourself the same compassion you treat others. It's like, it's treat others how you want to be treated, but also treat, if you're doing well with others and you give others, compassion, you need to give that
Apply
back to
that to
yourself.
yourself.
It's like it's a reverse
Yeah.
kind of deal on both sides.
Yeah.
And people need to I need to have more compassion to myself, and I tend to be hard on myself in the sense of when I screw up, it's a lot bigger of a deal, even if it's why it's not the things that mess me up the most is rarely big events. Like when people ask me to name a time, it's like it's hard for me to bring that up because
Sure.
it can be a headspace I was already in that just it was multiple small events or
Yeah.
multiple little things, and then
Yes.
just maybe that last one kicked the barrel.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and
It has a building effect.
yeah, it just builds up until the tower falls, and so yeah, and you're already into it. And when that comes, you're already into a bad headspace at that moment. You're already into a criticism of yourself, and whenever you screw up after that, and you're already in that overanalyzing,
You're just
it just
kicking
means
yourself when
so
you're
much
down.
more than what you think it does, or
Yes.
what it actually does.
Yeah. It looks like a bigger monster.
Yes.
I was thinking about something you said just a second ago about giving yourself grace, the grace that you give to other people, allowing that for yourself too, is that people are like, oh no, I don't love myself. I don't care about myself. I really could care less. And I'm like, no, hang on. Suspend that thought for a second, because you clothe yourself, you feed self, you take care of self, you groom self, bathe self, you go to work so you can pay for self. You like yourself more than you think you do. You're very driven to keep self alive. So why would you just apply that to keeping yourself alive and not thriving? You know what I mean? When God calls us to thrive, not just to keep self alive, not just to care about yourself long enough to keep you living, but to make you thrive.
Yeah.
But so when you're thinking about that, giving grace and mercy is not just taking care of your physical needs and the person that you are, but also taking care of your brain
Yeah.
and yourself, the person that's inside the flesh. How are you feeding and taking care of self? Applying that logic. Okay, let's see. If you think about the next 5 to 10 years, what kind of man do you hope to become?
I hope to have at least the majority of people who come to contact with me or meet me, or even people who I'm already in contact with, to be able to see Christ in me. And, I always pray the prayer, and it's, relatively recently that I've started, but it's, I want, Lord, I want you to glorify yourself through me. Is I think that's, even down to my accomplishments. I don't really take as much pride in, the actual, like, maybe accomplishments in my hobbies or something like that. I mean, I do take, I love what
Take
I do,
pride
and
in those
I take
things,
pride
yeah.
in it. I can acknowledge when you know, I've taken a cool photo or, drew a cool picture or whatnot. But I think the thing that makes me most not proud but honored is when people have told me that they see Christ in me, or whenever I know in an interaction, maybe it's a short interaction with somebody that you'll never see again, but when I know that, hey, I at least, maybe not perfectly, but I reflected Christ in some way. And,
Awesome.
that, and I think that's noticeable.
That's good.
So
That's a high honor.
yeah, it's
And a
really,
good thing to aspire to be is, one of the things that your dad and I wanted most for you guys was to be good humans,
yeah.
And I think that having that kind of a goal is exactly the kind of human that he wants you to be. It's good. Okay. What do you want people to know about your generation and faith? What do adults often miss?
What do I want people to know about
Your
my
generation and
generation?
faith, and what do adults often miss about your generation?
So there are definitely problems with, my generation.
There are with
I'm well
all.
aware with that. There's problems with every single
Sure.
generation. But something I've especially recently started to notice is is the people who do care about, bigger things.
Sure.
I think these, especially with, young adults who are still considered my generation, they're in a, you know, for housing and everything, they're in a hard, they're in a hard
Yeah.
economy. We're not, like, we have people, both parents working overtime
Yep.
and they can barely support themselves depending on the
Sure.
job. And, housing is crazy. So, with things like that, these people are doing the best with what they have. And then for my generation, I think people just misunderstand, you know, what we're talking about. And it's also maybe, we need to learn how to communicate better. But, when we're known as soft or something like that, maybe for some people, maybe it's,
Sure.
maybe they get offended too much on too little things. But I think we're seeing a spike in people actually caring about mental health and people caring about people around the world, even if, like even in wars or something,
Sure.
like if you don't, even if you're not even, I have my own opinions about that, but even if you're whatever side you're on, I hope we can still see that there is a generation who's caring about the humanity and is trying to prioritize that. May not be the may not be the perfect way, but we have a generation who's taking care into humanity. So, yeah, I think we can be misunderstood in the fact that we're softening up on people, but I think hopefully empathy will, make a rise.
Yeah. And keeping the fact that in those wars and in those conflicts that there are other humans that are bystanders there, and realizing that
Yeah.
nobody's ever always the bad guy, and there's things to be understood on both sides. Yeah. If you could pass one piece of wisdom to another teenager trying to figure out life and faith at this point in your life, what do you think it would be?
Sounds very simple, but Jesus. I think that, you may not have all the answers now, but there is somebody who does have the answers, and there is somebody who wants your life, and wants to do good with you and cares about you, and there's somebody who's not going to let you down when, every single, most people try to chase worldly happiness and worldly pleasure, and almost all the time they're let down.
It's fun for a while.
And there's a God out there who is going to provide you so much more than temporary pleasure, so much more than even a lifetime of happiness. He's gonna, provide a unique and authentic joy, and in love, and it's not going to stop, and he's not going to let you down because he already has everything, you know. He already knows what's going to happen. He's already won. So my advice would be, you know, get serious about, you know, what you're putting your faith into, and from there on out, treat it as the starting line and not the finish line. Don't treat your baptism as the finish line, and you're ready to go, do whatever you want now. Treat it as, you know, now I've just started the path, and I'm going to resort to him for wisdom, because I could tell you, you know, little bits of wisdom that I think everybody could benefit on,
Sure.
and, you know, little quotes or something like that. But I think the most impactful thing to a person is to seek out that from God, because he's going to provide you so much more. So,
Well, that baby will preach. It was such a good time, and thank you for coming on here with your mom and letting me share your story with you and with the rest of the world. And we thank you for that. I love you.
of course, I love you too.
Good night, everybody.